All right, we are back like we never left. Episode 18 of the Small Cap Review. Now, on this Monday, it's a little unique, being that we had such a crazy week last week and some wild momentum. So, today was a good day to be patient, to see what the market environment was going to be like, and take it one step at a time. So, that's kind of why we make these videos to talk not only talk about setups, talk about risk management, how to actually be a trader long term, but to also have a day by day gauge of the market sentiment. So, with that said, let's go ahead and jump into some of the gappers today, and we will start with a leading gapper or the leading gapper, GTBP, gapped up 150% today, and this was a daily that had a bunch of levels on it. I had a ton drawn out here, and you could draw a lot more. You could go absolutely nuts with this thing. I'm not going to add any more lines than I have here, but was kind of a difficult one to map out and determine what levels were going to be important to you. For me, this daily consolidation here was the most important thing to look at in between these two pivot zones, one pivot coming from right here, the other from over here, and just this nice base. That once we fail, we get a nice move to the downside. So that's where you can kind of see it clearly painted on the chart. So let's take a look at what we had. So like I said, 150% gapper, and was a pretty vertical pre-market to get there, starting all the way back here at 4 o'clock. Nothing but higher lows on its way up. And then some consolidation on top of that daily level going into open and then failing that previous pre-market high. So um, with this one, with it being the leading gapper and with the price being, $7, $8, $9 on this name, I was not super interested in trading it. I did have it on a side screen, but um, leading gappers are, when I was on the short side of the fence primarily, this is the kind of thing that I would look for, just the leading gappers, something with a higher price range. So, you know, now that I am mostly longing at the moment, I know kind of what to stay away from, at least for my personal style. So even though we do get, these nice moves that we're typically looking for at open, a nice pullback, dip into a clear daily zone that is respected, as we had some respect here in the pre-market, and then all of this, like I said, consolidation on the daily, get a nice move to the upside and a halt up, but tricky price action into this pre-market high zone and get a halt down. Now, I think I've talked about it on maybe 4 straight videos. When the levels, those key levels at open, when they hold and they're not, receiving additional downward pressure, when you make those lows and start building off of these levels and see them hold, it's a name to continue to keep on watch. And that's exactly what we have here. This daily zone, this clear zone, gets absorbed and makes a nice move up. And if you were going to trade it, for me, this is the best place to get interested down in here, where we're dipping back into the zone, back above VWAP. EMAs stacked positively and ready for that next leg up. So if I was looking at it, first target, of course, being that daily pivot above, lining up with this pre-market high, and that is a good, 15+% away. And then those zones to the next level, almost double that, 32% above. So you get a nice move to the upside, a little bit of tricky price action with these upper wick candles happening, and this dip below the daily pivot on this, stronger selling candle here. But we do have lighter volume here on this selling candle, and then we get a higher low. Again, EMA is staying positively stacked for that additional move higher. So ended up giving you a nice move in the afternoon if you were patient enough to either grab some down here in the consolidation zone on the daily or get it off of VWAP. Those I think were the key places that you could have, of course, down here, more risky before it shows that it's going to have strength. So, tricky one to play out of the open, of course, with the halt up, halt down. Would imagine most, at least disciplined traders, are getting stopped out on their shares they're taking here at 750s, if that is how you would have traded it down here. and then gets a nice move up without you. So good play there, a little tricky, but good one to keep notes on, especially the keeping levels at open part of it. So let's go ahead, move on down the list. MMV, the next leading gapper. And this is something when I was doing some weekend review of some of the names last week, something that I noticed that I want to point out to you guys. When, oh, hopefully I didn't just move a level. When you're looking at the daily, before this day has been made, oh, don't want to go so far. All right, sorry about that. You see here this last day, it's only a little over 4 million. But when you compare it to all this volume it's had for months and months and months, this is elevated volume for this name. And when you're coming off these lows on elevated volume, um, I saw a lot of the names that ran last week, even just day one gappers, not the extended moves. And I think even maybe FFIE did have this on day one of its move. But yeah, that elevated volume is something that I will be looking for moving forward. So something to keep in mind for you guys. Now, in terms of what we have on this day, let's pull this thing up. Excuse me. Now, this one had some pretty clean and clear levels that you could have mapped out here with recent pivots. Kind of the set of three at the bottom end and the set of three at the top end of the range with some additional pivots above. And in pre-market, we kind of just play in between these zones. We go up to the top, bottom, top, bottom. So it paints a really clear zone for us. And additionally, down here at the bottom of the range, this is the whole dollar. So obviously a very key psychological level down here. And we get this low of day at 99 cents. So I kind of take out that whole dollar, but then we get a very strong move to the upside. And so when we look at this, what do we like to see in terms of volume at the open? Go to the start of the day. We have, we'll call it 15 million. So we're looking for 4-to-1 ratio. So 60 million shares in the first hour. And what do we have? Go here to first hour. Pretty much perfectly 60 million shares, just a little bit above. So we do get that kind of volume that we want to see it open, and we see it continue to come in as it makes its high moves. So how could we have traded this? Drawing out these pre-market zones, this high, which I have it from the after hours up here to this pre-market high, and then these after hours lows here that it bounces off of at 4 o'clock this morning at the open, and clear painted range. And then we also have that lining up with this 103 daily pivot right here. We see it tapped a couple times. And then also that psychological $1 whole dollar down here as well. So a lot of good things, good action going on right here. Now we don't get the picture perfect ideal setup for me because we have this pivot right above that we reject at the open. As you've heard me mention a few times, this is kind of a when the rest of the chart looks like a short, and this one did not have a full-blown short setup that I'd want to be a part of. But I don't like to trade stuff with pivots right above it, as they can be clear rejection points like we see here. But once we get that absorption off of a dollar, off of all these levels that I just talked about, and this move back up above this pivot, now it is game on in my book. This is where I would start to get interested here. Positive EMAs either on the VWAP test when it comes back down or as it breaks through this 117 level. And from there, you just let the momentum do the work for you. Let's see. I thought we had a halt up in this thing, but I do not. Does not look like it. Of course, we have one here. But on this move up, it kind of just chews through all this pre-market consolidation because we do have that nice volume, that 4-to-1 volume building here, and the 8 EMA acting as a strong guide. Only one point here where it gets a little tricky. And oh yeah, here is the halt. It was a halt down at 10:04, resuming 10:10 right here. So of course, tricky action here. Oh yeah, this, excuse me guys, this was a halt up into a halt down, and then we resume and go higher on the name. I knew it was in there somewhere. And we have another halt here as well. So if you're in this, first price targets, like I said, 117 is where I would start to get interested, and we still have a really nice range, 25% up to these next daily levels, and you get that on a pretty clean and fast move here. And if you take some profits there, puts you in a better spot to hold some of your shares for an additional leg, and you get that here, pre-market high, chew through, and you even get a nice bounce off of this daily level at 159? Very clear on the chart. Could even have drawn this as a zone. So you get a nice bounce here off the 159 level, plus pre-market for that last leg up. So even if you're just kind of taking quicker trades and even quicker than what I do, you still get almost 30% to the top from the 159 level. So good trades on this name. Once you get that consolidation here at the top on much, very diminished volume here, it just does not have the juice to continue for additional legs higher. But this was a really nice trader, a good name to see going, and gave some really clean plays here on the long side that you could have taken. Now, I will go to TANH or TANH, whatever you want to call this thing. This is one that I traded. This was the breadwinner for me today, and I will talk about what made me interested in this name. It gapped up 43%, and it did gap up above this previous consolidation level. And then, like what I just talked about, we had elevated volume on the prior day. Of course, it doesn't look like that when you include today's volume, but when you take that out, you do have this little bit higher volume day here. This was a gap day, and this was like a nice push day here, and then the backside of it. So when you see all these days that have the volume, it does show some push on it, and I just like to see the day before the gap up getting that elevated volume. So like I said, it gapped up above this consolidation that we have down here, all these pivots, and again, as I'm looking at this, could have drawn an even bigger zone, but it wouldn't have come into play. But what really caught my eye was this gap here on the daily. Little baby gap, but gaps are important. You hear me say it time and time again, and we will show it here in pre-market. And actually, before we go there, where do I get these giant purple blocks from? Purple is my pre-market levels, and if you go to, we'll go with the hourly chart for it. You'll see these previous gap days where it went up to this zone and failed, and then even further back on the chart, we have the same type of action here. I went down to the 2-minute chart to get some more definition on these, but they were some big upper wicks there, even on the 2-minute, so I just drew them as big blocks here. And in the pre-market, we have some, above and under daily gap levels here. I like the range that it showed here at the open, showing me that it probably does want to come in here and test this pre-market zone again at the open. And when I saw this making this move before open, I was kind of bummed out because if it opened up in this gap, or not gap, in this pre-market zone rather, I would not have been interested, would have looked more like a fade from there to me. But this nice pullback into open and this bottom wick through the daily gap, and I was in right away. I was in about, it was about 9.5, a little bit less than 9.5, I think. So I had a really nice average, risking the low of day on this name, and we do get that 4-to-1 volume ratio. I'll draw that out just so you all can see. We start here. This thing had 8.6. Oh, don't do that. 0.6, and then by the first hour, I have about 40. So good volume ratio that we like to see from pre-market to open. And if you take a look left on the chart, sorry, I have some notes here that I'm trying to reference as I go through it. We do see a bit of a personality on this name, of a name that could spike. You see these big upper wicks on a handful of the days. Even this one does not look so significant, but this is kind of the outline of the trade as the day started. We're opening down here, we're testing. I mean, this is the candle that made the daily gap, but testing this daily gap range. And so from there, I knew that range from the daily gap up to this level, 20% was not a big deal for this stock. It could easily do that, and that's what we got. So I took some profits up into here, was able to hold into a couple of these halts up. We had a hold up here. On resumption, I took some. On the halt here, on the resumption, I took half of what I had left, so maybe had like an eighth of the shares left. That ended up, selling all into this consolidation. I did not like this move down, and maybe thought it was going to build, but just, not enough volume came in to push it higher to this upper zone that would have been an ultimate target. So for me, was a really sick trader. Like I said, we had awesome range on the name. Almost a 75% move from the daily gap to the high of day. So really clean one to trade. And as long as you had this daily gap painted on your chart and were comfortable taking that early entry with the risking of low of day, the risk to reward ratio was really nice on it. I was only risking, we'll call it 6 cents, and got almost 60 cents off of it. So um, yeah, awesome move. Hopefully some of you guys were able to take advantage of it as well. One more on the gappers list, and actually, let me just point this out real quick. I know we talk about winners and the setups all the time in here. Here's just a quick example of that setup not really working, where you do get the dip into the daily zone at the start of the day. But on the daily chart, you see here on SCPX, we had this gap on the daily. And even though we did have this lower consolidation, really all the stock wanted to do was fill this gap it had been working on for the last couple sessions. So we get that move above the gap, some more consolidation at that clear level, and fails. So maybe this does something later in the day, but I just wanted to point out one time where this specific setup did not work, just so we're not blindly taking it saying it works 100% of the time, because nothing does. So anyway, NKGN. Okay, for the first time in this channel's history, we're doing some video editing, video cut out there, so redoing it from NKGN. So this is one where it showed good range in the pre-market. It's about 60% range here from this daily zone up to these levels, and let's take a look at the daily and see where we get some of these levels from. This consolidation here, I had this bottom pivot mapped out, and then wanted to encapsulate all these candles inside here, and we also get some respect here. So got a daily zone, and this is one that ran in the past. If we can take a look, clear gap and spike tendency on this name, which you really like to see that in the personality. Very clear daily gap, and I had this previous high of day marked out here as well. So handful of levels going into the day, and we get kind of our classic setup here. After it showed that good range in pre-market, we get that deep fade, and we get that 4-to-1 volume ratio. I'm not going to draw it out, but again, it is the 4-to-1 ratio from the pre-market volume to the first hour of the day up till 10:30 market time. This is a clean move all the way. Low day in the first 5 minutes, like strong stocks do, and a EMA ride all the way up once we get on top of VWAP. A little bit of consolidation there for some additional legs up. Fill this small gap on the daily, which just comes from right here. Very, very small daily gap. And then a nice spike up right to this previous high of day, which is also inside of this daily gap. So great place to take profits on this name. And a clean trader all around this morning. So really nice move on here to be able to go from $1.20 to $2.14. Really awesome. So really out of the gappers, we had 4 that made nice moves. 3 of which MMV, TANH, and NKGN were super clean moves that were good to be a part of. So with all of that said, on the long side, I know I mentioned last week, I'll talk a little bit more short side, and I just want to point out FFIE, not to ruffle any feathers. It seems like, judging from some of the comments and some of the activity on my videos, I think people are finding these names by searching, they saw something online about FFIE or CRKN, and they type it in and they see it in this video, and they, are maybe hoping that I give more of a bullish outlook on some of these things. So if you're in that spot, look away because that is not what this video is going to be. This gave a really clean setup here on the short side, and I'll talk specifics here. Now, we had so many shares traded over the opening price that we had today. I mean, all of this from yesterday, this highest volume point from the previous day, um, ton of shares going off above. So, what are we looking for on this short? For me, it was all about mapping the pivots. Going to put you onto a little sauce here. 10-minute chart with the pre-market data turned off, very clean for marking pivots. Most obvious pivot came from the start of the day here on the prior session, excuse me, and it lines up with the high of day from the day before. So we get a nice confluence level up here, and we see that the high of day level, which again we get from over here, is respected the prior day with this, push up into it and a fail. So what do we know? Last time price came to this level, it failed. What do we get here? Price comes up to this level and fails. So when we get this, previous high day level with the daily pivot, that makes for an awesome short. And once we get this rejection of it, risk the high day and let it rip. So price targets for a setup like this, 15-minute 200 or the 8 EMA on the daily. Here's the 15-minute 200, excuse me, down here at 150, which you would have gotten pretty quickly. You could have either taken some there or had some more faith for the hold because the 8 on the daily, whatever, the 8 on the daily is down here, so it's still good range on the other side of this daily gap. So really nice play to the short side there. Now, one that was on the gappers list and oh no, say it ain't so. One that was on the gappers list and also gave a just ridiculous fade was MTC. Come on, MTC. There it is. So this thing gapped up. It is a China name, and what do we got to look at on the chart? Let's look left. What does this thing like to do? Build, 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 and absolutely crush it to the downside. Had other examples here of just these really strong moves up and then it giving 100% of it back. So I really don't think I have too much of value to offer on this name. Just hope you guys stayed safe on it. Where we get this really powerful pre-market move on the daily chart, you're like, oh, we're finally, going to get over these consolidation levels here, or this high day rather, from this daily setup, but we end up getting a 84% fade, high of opening hours about, we'll call it 12, and this is under $1 at some point. So, I mean, if you were able to get this on the short side, congratulations. That's an absolutely insane move. I will have to do some more studying to see how I could be a part of this thing next time. We had a similar chart on CTNT, but this one may even be more nuts because at least when I looked at it earlier, it was making some recovery. Yep. This is a chart where this is the ultimate high. Sorry that there's all these like stupid indicator dots on this chart right now. But we had this is an all-time high level up here. And we were kind of playing with it and going through it. At the end of last week, we talked about it a couple of days where we had this, consolidation on top and this move on. But today, we get a huge dump down all the way back towards the bottom of this chart, and then it just, rips back up above these levels. So what's this thing doing? I got no clue. It's a company that apparently buys cars in America and sells them in China. So, you know, whatever that's worth for you, business with China. So I just want to point this out. This is kind of the crazy bonus, crazy chart of the day. But I'll end it there before I just keep on going. So thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. We do this every day. So if you, again, want to learn about setups, about risk management, about the general sentiment of the small cap market, you're in the right place. Feel free to stick around and we'll be back at it tomorrow. So thank you all. Hope you had a good day, and I'll catch you tomorrow.